Sekeres Price for Thursday, April 25th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. And if you're heading to a game or an event in downtown Vancouver, make it a staycation. Call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres Price rate based on availability. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Sean Chessman hitting switches, conducting things alongside Grady Sass. Grady playing hurt today, so Sean's on the board.
This is what we do with our interns.
Big responsibility, Sean. Anyways, doing a great job. And we got a big show all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
Applewood Nissan in Surrey has the 2024 legendary Pathfinder with lease rates at 3.99% for 24 months. Finance it at 3.99% up to 36 months. It's all at Applewood Nissan in Surrey because it's all good at Applewood.
Poll question today. We are asking you who is the bigger key to victory in Game 3? Casey DeSmith, Elias Pettersson, other. If you are voting other, please specify in reply. Vote at Sekeres Price on Twitter and YouTube. I voted Casey DeSmith. A goaltender has a much more pronounced effect on the proceedings.
Mm-hmm.
They won Game 1 without Petey really doing much. So while I understand, and we will get into the case for the Canucks top 6 and their star players to affect this series a little bit more on the score sheet, and Pettersson's slump, which continues, of course, I voted Casey DeSmith. If he's bad, they are in a whole heck of a lot of trouble. If he's good, he gives them a chance to win, and perhaps even with a paucity of goals, maybe 2-1.
I will agree with you, as boring as that is, because I honestly, the Canucks are not a one-person team as far as the skaters go. They've got enough elite talent. Their top scorer is JT Miller. Their top player maybe is Quinn Hughes. So if they can just have Casey DeSmith rise to the level of an 7.5 to 8 out of 10 goalie, then they're going to be okay
against this team.
Yeah, against this team.
Again,
in this moment,
this is not a world beater.
No,
this is a beatable team even without your star goaltender. But your margin is slimmer now. There are things that now have to happen that you might have been able to get away with if Thatcher Demko was in goal. Let's start with the defensive effort in Game 2. Extraordinary. That's how you need to play in front of a backup goaltender.
Sure.
And give Nashville credit for getting to 3 goals on DeSmith because they took advantage of a Pettersson turnover. That's something they absolutely have to do, right? When you get a gift like that. Forsberg scores a world-class goal because Forsberg is a world-class sniper. Do you see how often he shoots the puck? More than 4 shots per game over the course of the regular season.
It's on him.
Goal.
It's on him.
So you give him credit on that. And, Sissons does what you're trained to do, particularly when you're not a great goal scorer and can score from distance. You go to the net. You look for those rebounds, deflections, tip-ins, et cetera, et cetera.
Votes dovetail perfectly into today's top story.
The return of Tyler Myers. He is back on the practice ice at Bridgestone, the Ford Center practice facility in Nashville, who, of course, missed Game 2, and his absence was noted because while Noah Juulsen had a terrific season and turned himself into an NHL player this year, which he previously really had not been, more of a fringe quad A guy, a one-time first-round pick from Abbotsford. I saw him this week talking about growing up watching the Canucks in the playoffs. So he's the hometown kid as well, and that's another layer of the story that we adore here because Canucks haven't done well enough over the years in mining British Columbia and BC talent. But he was playing his first Stanley Cup playoff game, and it showed. He had a tough time. Got better as the game went along. But he's not Tyler Myers. And Myers, I thought, was quite good in Game 1 at both ends of the ice.
Yeah.
Both as a defender and a couple of times jumping in, joining the rush, creating that extra little stress and angst on the Predators defense. When you see 6'8" bearing down on goal. with that shot.
It's just more mass. We talked about this with regards to goaltending a couple of days ago. More mass is generally good, especially when you're mobile. I think it's really good news that he's out there for practice because based on the reports of how sick he was, God, I would have given him the extra 24 hours if he needed it. I would have said, hey, be there for game day skate. We trust that you'll be ready for game time as long as you can get out there for game day skate. The fact that he's doing them one better is actually getting out there for practice. I hope he doesn't infect anybody. We don't need to have that storyline affect the Vancouver Canucks in this playoff run. But it's a really good sign that he's muscled it out to be at practice here.
When I can't help but laugh, but when you talk about Tyler Myers and his mass, and we think back to game 2 and all the shot blocking, the human shields that were the Nashville Predators skater, this is almost the Tony Gallagher series. Physical matter.
Yes.
Not a lot of holograms in this.
No holograms. Cinder block walls have been built.
Exactly. You remember the Tony, right? They had no matter.
Yeah.
Right through them. Yeah, not a lot of right through them in this series.
And the Canucks 2 big men, of course, we lauded the play of both Zadorov and Myers in game number 1. If they have those kinds of games in game number 3,
right,
I think the Canucks are in pretty good state. And so might Casey DeSmith. And this was my original point. Those 2 guys, probably on different pairings, helping to be an additional wall in front of Casey DeSmith. That bodes well for the Vancouver Canucks.
Thatcher Demko traveled with the hockey club to Nashville. Now, before anyone gets too excited, I would suspect it is moral support.
Mascots like, yes.
Yeah, we know how close he has gotten with Casey DeSmith. Everybody saw the big hug and embrace and the enthusiasm, the genuine enthusiasm and happiness that Demko had for DeSmith after he beat the Oilers. Was it the Oilers or the Jets? Oilers. In that final week of the regular season. So Demko there as moral support. Later in the program, Patrick Johnston is going to tell us what he's found out about Thatcher Demko's injury. And of course, there's still some unknowns there, but needless to say, not expecting Thatcher Demko back in this series in the least. Which brings us back to DeSmith. And that is, and this is something that you mused about going into game 2. How quick is the Shepherd staff if he doesn't look like he's got things under control early? Arturs Silovs is your backup goaltender. Look, Silovs has had some NHL success in small samples. Now, I don't think his most recent performances breed the most confidence. I don't know how much you can read into that sensational tournament MVP performance for Latvia at the World Championships.
I think it matters.
I think it matters, but those are for the most part European professionals and some NHL.
But he was under siege at times.
Yeah. But I think it is actually going to tell us a fair bit about what Rick Tocchet, Ian Clark, and the organization feels about Silovs if they go there quickly. If they let DeSmith hang in there, I think that's probably a tell on how ready they feel Silovs would be for this moment. The flip side is you ain't got time to bleed. You cannot afford a goaltender who's shaky, who's not on his A game, who's an adventure.
Reading between the lines from his comments late yesterday, Rick Tocchet, he was quick to answer. Like it was like not even a question, Casey DeSmith. And so but
I think he had to answer that for the sake of DeSmith's confidence, right?
Yeah,
he's a smart guy. He understands who he's messaging to, and it's not just fans and media; it's also his own dressing room. So that was absolutely appropriate from Tocchet. It doesn't mean that there isn't a plan B that the coaching staff has talked about, and including a when do we execute if we need to go there.
In a weird way, Matt, it could be a quicker leash than you expect, though, because the Canucks generally don't give up a ton of shots. So if it's another case where the Canucks have given up 5 shots through 18 minutes of the first period, but he's let in 2 of them, while totally overcomable, that next goal, of course, is a big one, as we saw in game number 2. That 3-0 goal or that 2-1 goal is pretty big. The Canucks just don't allow a lot of shots. So the amount of goals let in does not have to be a gaudy number for you to consider, wow, this guy doesn't have it tonight. So I think it's going to have to be a good first period for Casey DeSmith to take the pressure off. And we know with goaltenders, once that's in your head, once the got to make the first couple of saves is in your head, it can be a snowball rolling downhill. We saw that with Jacob Markstrom at times when he got on the first shot in train, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that was just a really tough goal to let in, and it really set the tone for the entire night, it felt like, for the Vancouver Canucks. First couple of saves are going to be big for Casey DeSmith tomorrow night.
Indeed. Now, here are your goal scorers for the Vancouver Canucks through 2 games. Dakota Joshua, 2. Nikita Zadorov, Elias Lindholm, Pius Suter. What's missing?
Yeah, pretty much everybody.
What's missing? Absolutely everybody, right? Hughes, Miller, Pettersson, Besser, Garland. Just about
Höglander, another 20 goal scorer.
Yeah. Just about everybody you relied on to score goals in the regular season has not yet been heard from.
Yeah.
In this series. The law of averages, and we talked a little bit about law of averages, regression of the mean with regards to the way game 2 went down, the Nashville blocking all the shots, all the shot attempts, how few shot attempts Nashville had, comparatively speaking, and whether all that can continue. And, the same applies here with all these guys who have been goal scorers. You have to think at some point, right? Now, you and I have both covered playoff series where you say that mid-series, and then you look at the end of the series and the Stars didn't score, and you say to yourself, wow, picked the wrong time to go cold. But you would have to think that some of that changes, that we hear from Miller on the score sheet, that we hear from Besser, maybe even Pettersson. The other thing here, Pettersson without a point, Roenick and Höglander playing their first Stanley Cup playoff games. They have never been here before. No points through the first couple of games. Ilya Mikheyev without a point. Sam Lafferty without a point in the first couple of games. Miller and Hughes have an assist. Of course, Hughes had a goal credited to him, which was later changed to Pius Suter. But anyways, Hughes has a couple of assists in the series. Miller, just the one. I think important to note when we're talking about Pettersson's struggles is Höglander has been virtually invisible. And this is a guy who typically is noticeable even when he's not scoring goals.
Mm-hmm.
He does have the occasional game where he's quiet and you don't see him or hear him. But we all think Hughes, Miller, Besser, some combination thereof, even Petey, some combination thereof are going to at some point impact the series with goals. Where are you on Höglander?
Well, as Jeff's piece in Canucks Armory points out, the performance so far has been so vacuous that it does leave you too concerned. And I think on a deeper team, he'd be at serious risk of maybe a scratching. But in
really
on a deeper team,
boy,
not on this team.
That'd be an awfully deep team, I think.
Well, he's a young player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a young player that you could just be teaching a lesson to. But this team can't afford to lose a 25 goal scorer to lineup.
No,
it's perplexing to me because everything he does, and this was always perplexing as to why he didn't work as a National Hockey Leaguer before this season. He's got all the right tools to be an impactful playoff performer. He's a pugnacious guy. He's not afraid to go into battle and to try to win puck battles. Does he win every puck battle? No, but he's not afraid of them. So I think he's got the ability to be a player in this series. To your greater point, though, you have to show up. All the star players do, but not everybody always does. I mean, I look back at this last Canucks Predators series in 2011. And we go back to that series because it's proof of concept of how you can advance in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Two guys had good series on the entire team.
Kessler and Higgins.
Kessler and Ehrhoff. Maybe Henrik Henrik gets a pass at 4 points in 6 games, but that's hardly his 110-point pace. Everybody else is like Daniel Sedin had 1 goal and 2 assists in 6 games. So,
I can remember the Twins being pretty quiet in that series. Well, I mean, everybody took a backseat to Kessler in that series, but
so like somebody just needs to author the story here. It doesn't necessarily have to be 6 guys authoring the story, but 1 to 3 guys probably need to say this series is my series, and I'm going to provide enough. So, feel free to submit your application if you're the Vancouver Canucks players right now. Somebody has to make an impact.
Harmon Dial of The Athletic and, of course, Canucks Conversation alongside David Quadrelli, and you're going to want to check their program out later this afternoon. He is in Nashville. He is observing practice. Blake, the forward lines are all the same from game 2. Pettersson with Höglander and Mikheyev, Miller with Besser and Suter, Lindholm with Joshua and Garland, and Bluger between DiGiuseppe and Lafferty. Myers has slotted back into his usual spot alongside Carson Soucy. Now, doesn't mean they're going to play that way tomorrow. And, of course, if there are changes afoot, you probably won't see that at morning skate because there probably won't be the entirety of the
It'll
team
be an optional,
at an optional morning skate. But it looks very much like Rick Tocchet and his staff don't believe it is yet time to, I don't want to say panic button because changing lines is not a panic button, but doesn't yet feel it's time to adjust and adapt the forward combination. Your thoughts there? Or defense pairs as well?
I thought that they would start. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. I thought they would start with the same lineup. It's, if there's a spinning of tires early on, like when in the game do you make the change? If there's a spinning of tires. The Canucks had the puck for so much of the time in the game. We know how it played out. We don't need to recap game 2 again. But they did a good job of having the puck. And that's, in the simplest of terms, best defense is a good offense because it means that you're probably at least 100 feet away from your own goal a lot of the time. I've seen in other series, teams and media and fans lamenting the constant change of lineups. So, there's no right way of doing this, but you have to play it by feel. And Rick Tocchet has been a guy that has had a pretty good thermometer on the vibes button for his team. And if he starts this way, I don't think there's much to criticize there, but it's what he does with it along the way. If there are struggles, I think that's where he's going to be judged. At least that's from my opinion. Like I don't think this is wrong to go back to the mill here and expect, because I mean you have the theory here, like the first and the third line, that's the Miller line and the Lindholm line, if that is indeed first and third. Those 2 lines, they in particular look okay. Like everybody wants more bottom line, sure, but in terms of just judges cards, those 2 lines in particular look okay. Do you mix everything up because the Pettersson line doesn't? And I don't know that that's. I think this is a reasonable starting spot for the Canucks.
Yeah, I would agree. Although, as I mentioned yesterday, I do think you're a little more urgent here now with Pettersson and with getting enough goals. And to me, that means I think you have to consider going to Lotto line quicker and more permanently if things are not going well early in the hockey game. If you're not scoring goals, if Pettersson looks like he's still fighting his confidence. Incidentally, I know we spent a lot of time on Pettersson and body language yesterday. We've watched Elias Pettersson over his Vancouver Canucks career as well. We know that has sort of been par for the course with Petey, the throw in the head back and up when he missed. What we're saying is in the Stanley Cup playoffs, everything is under a microscope. And because you have a number of players, Philip Hronek, Nils Höglander, Noah Juulsen, some Casey DeSmith, some others who are either playing their first Stanley Cup playoff game or have played very few Stanley Cup playoff games, what you're trying to avoid is that Pettersson's frustration and struggles spread a little bit and affect morale of the hockey club. right?
Yeah.
Because, the worst, a bad scenario is Pettersson struggling throughout this series. The worst scenario is that Pettersson struggles affect a broader constituency of the hockey club.
Yeah, I mean, it's potentially there. I think we're pretty early in the playoffs for that. I think if they get down 2-1 or 3-1 in the series, I think you really risk that. The comments on YouTube here, Mel, I saw a video of PD goals during a playoff bubble. It's like watching a different person. Ian, the next comment, watching PD highlights makes me sick, LOL, like he's not even the same player. And yeah, I mean, you forget that in the playoff bubble is the playoff bubble. I think that's regular season times 1.5 rather than times 2, which is the normal factor perhaps, but it was still a reasonable facsimile of playoff hockey. And yeah, he did look way more confident, way more assertive, and which is odd because he's actually physically a much bigger, stronger person than he was back then. So you have to hope, Matt, that at some point something just clicks. A modicum of success. We've heard Brendan Morrison talk about this on yesterday's show. An empty netter, believe it or not, can help. And I've heard countless players talk about this. Empty netters actually help players. Yeah. So whatever it is,
just seeing the puck go in and touch,
penetrate the force field of the goal line, whatever it is, maybe it just takes that for the dam to break for Pettersson.
Some would say Pettersson missed an empty netter in game 2.
It's true.
There was a goalie in the vicinity, but he wasn't really in the net.
Not really tending the goal.
Exactly.
Yes.
Here's the other thing we got to consider. Because it's not all just doom and gloom on the Vancouver Canucks side. Andrew Brunette made mention in the game and after the game, the head coach of the Nashville Predators, that his club is paying the price for shot blocking. So, do they have injuries? Are we going to find out about a Predator missing tomorrow's game?
Jason Zucker went down on one blast from the point.
Do they have guys who are limited? There was already some talk that maybe Forsberg was fighting through something heading into this series. Is that going to be a greater list, a more expanded list of Predators who are somehow compromised in their ability physically to do everything they're expected to do, hoping to do? And so how is their depth going to hold up if, in fact, either of those things is the case?
And again, because
you're 2 games in, so the price, the toll, we haven't aggregate is not quite there yet. But when you play a game where you block 33 shots and are playing defense as much as Nashville was playing defense, of course, it's a lot more energy taxing to play the defensive side of the puck than to set up in the half
court. Every team will tell you that.
And pass the puck around. So yeah, the injury attrition, all that isn't quite pronounced after 2 games, but it is starting to creep into the equation. And I think a little more acutely after a game like that from the Preds.
I mentioned Zucker going down. I have nothing to think that Zucker won't play in this game. But if you think that him walking around with the big bruise somewhere in the ankle foot region is going to make him think a little bit more about whether or not to block that certain shot, he will. He's a human being and he wants to play the rest of the game, right? Like he knows that he could block that shot, but it very well could mean that he's out of the game. He wants to play. The self-preservation is a thing still. And once you've taken one on the, how many guys felt those shots? You'd have to think there's 2 guys that were bruised pretty good. After 33 shots, like, hey, some of them hit you perfectly in the shin pad, you feel almost nothing. When the quantity gets to 33, there's 2 that got through. There's 2 that caught the seam of the pad at minimum.
Yeah.
And have caused some guys to hurt.
Abbotsford Canucks, they've won a playoff game. They win game 1 in Colorado on Wednesday. Archdeep Baines with a goal. Tristan Nielsen, a couple of assists. Cole McWard, Linus Karlsson get on the score sheet there. And Zach Sawchenko, after just 6 AHL games all year, stops 23 of 25 shots. It's a best of 3 in the AHL Calder Cup first round. The Abbey Canucks could be advancing as soon as Friday evening. So good work there from Jeremy Colleton and his crew. Just want to touch on a couple of other series here. First of all, Vegas, Dallas. I don't know if it makes you sick to your stomach as it makes me sick to see all these Vegas guys come back and suddenly the 8 seed defending Stanley Cup champs have a 2-buzz lead on the Western Conference number 1 seed, the Stanley Cup favorite, my pick, Frank Cervelli's pick, a lot of people's pick, heading back to Sin City. Did you see the quote from Dallas coach Pete DeBoer, of course, one-time Vegas coach Pete DeBoer? He was asked if the Knights have them figured out and said they're the Stanley Cup champions. They have everyone figured out. And I understand what he's trying to say is, hey, when you're Stanley Cup champions,
you've been there before, you know what it takes.
You bested the field there. I also wonder whether that's something you'd want to hear as a Dallas Star player going on the road, knowing that game 3 is must win now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This was the perfect scenario for everybody in the Pacific Division. Get these guys out of our way for for 2 rounds. Don't see them till the 3rd. Let them is their reward for beating the Dallas Stars now going to be the Colorado Avalanche? Mm-hmm. It's going to be murderer's row for Vegas to repeat. Honestly, if they repeat, even with the skullduggery, my God, they are going to be facing the best teams in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I'd like to say stick tap to them, but I just can't get out. No, I can't.
No, I know. I've been watching those 2 series, the LA Oilers series and that series, more than I normally watch the other series in the NHL, just because I find them both fascinating. Both because one the Canucks dodged, one they might see, and both of them are in tough.
Yeah. Radek Faksa, Mason Marchment left the game for Dallas in the 3rd period. So, hey, could be without a couple of their forwards in game 3. We shall see.
We should mention, by the way, we kind of skipped past the Predators practice. Everybody on the ice except Philip Forsberg. He's been missing a bunch of practices lately.
He's had a bunch of maintenance days, which is what's led people to
don't get super excited about that if you're a Canuck fan. But they did call up Juuso Parssinen apparently today, and he was the guy skating in Forsberg's spot. Right. Just the fact they called somebody up maybe leads you to believe that.
Well, I mean, if Forsberg is missing from that lineup, that would sort of be I'm not sure if it's the equivalent of Demco missing, but it would be a huge piece out of the Nashville lineup if that were to be the case.
But again, he's been missing a lot lately, so probably nothing.
Edmonton is making goal scoring on the Kings look so bloody easy compared to what the Canucks have faced with LA. Do you think the Kings have a chance now after getting game 2?
The Kings got away from their structure a little bit, having to worry about last change and everything. As BX said after the game, I thought it was astute. When you got last change, they really can drill down on their structure a lot more. So I think there's good reason to believe the Kings are more annoying to play against if you're the Edmonton Oilers in LA. Game 3 is going to be important, not only in just the normal course of things. Game 3s are always important, but I think it's just to see, was that just the perfect Kings game? Could they was that their Mona Lisa, and are they capable of doing that on the regular, or did they play out of their comfort zone but muscle one out and now come home to a scenario that more befits them? If they clamp down a lot more in their opening half, there was really low shots on goal in that game for the first half of that game, and then the Oilers started to loosen things up a little bit more. But if they get to slow things down a lot more in the LA games, this could be a lot more difficult for the Oilers than we originally anticipated. A lot of people had that as a 5-game series. Mm-hmm. We're going to find out here really quickly.
Honestly, I still wouldn't be surprised if it's a 5.
Could be. As I said, I think that might be the perfect game last night for the Kings, and that's the best they can do.
Sheldon Keefe, head coach, Toronto Maple Leafs, quote on Brad Marchand of the Boston Bruins. He gets calls. It's unbelievable, actually, how it goes. You've got to play through that stuff. I don't think there's another player in the series who gets away with taking out Bertuzzi's legs the way that he does. It's an art, and he's elite at it.
Question. You don't say.
Question. Newsflash from Leaf.
Shocker.
Question. Good to point that out. Put the officials on notice for game 4. or the excuse making has started. Bad message to send to your club.
I mean,
because those were the two comments coming out of last night's game from coaches that caught my ear. The DeBoer quote about they got everyone figured out, and I understand the way he's saying it, but still, when you read it flatly, and a lot of players will read that flatly, and then secondly, Keefe griping about Brad Marchand.
You know, we've seen it through the annals of hockey history play out in both ways, where player X behaves like this, gets in the head of said team, and lives in that head for the rest of a series that they win. Or, you know, we have seen it work the other way where hockey coach or executive, you know, calls out said player and it rallies the team and maybe gets in the head of the referees and you start to get some calls. We've seen it play out in both directions. So I don't know what to think of that. I don't know what success level it's going to have. I think the best case scenario for the Leafs is getting Willie Nylander healthy and back in the lineup. That's probably job number one for the Toronto Maple Leafs at this point.
A reminder, we are going to be at Greta 50 West Cordova Friday, 4:30. Come on down, join us. We'll watch some hockey. We'll have some fun, great food. Awesome arcade there. We'll give away some prizes, do some trivia. 4:30 at Greta, 50 West Cordova on Friday, and then back there on Sunday for a 2 p.m. puck drop. Come on down and join us. We'd love to see you. A special happy birthday to Adam, the former Bath guy.
Oh,
milestone birthday, Adam. We're not going to out you here, but Adam's been a regular at our Greta events.
Yeah, that's right.
Looking forward to seeing him. We're going to buy him a birthday bevy, I think.
Sounds like
on the Sekeres and Price show. Good. A reminder about the daily face-off and the parlay challenge that's going on. You want to win prizes? You want to win cash? It's all at games.dailyfaceoff.com. Each game day, answer 4 questions. Pick the winning team, guess if points will be over or under, predict the first goal, choose the highest scoring period. Daily winners get the gift cards. The champs of each round, they get cash. Games.dailyfaceoff.com. Prove your puck prowess. Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by Ben Moss Jewelers. We are going to speak with Ray Ferraro. You know him, Canucks Sportsnet analyst, the ESPN hockey analyst as well. Ray's got a bit of a break in his schedule because the ESPN games slide a little bit with the National Football League draft coming up this weekend. So back here in town, have a fantastic conversation coming up with Ray. As per usual, we'll ask him all the pertinent questions, his thoughts on the series. How do you get the power play going? How do you get Petey going? What he thinks of Casey DeSmith in the spot he's in. Lotto line, is there a good time, a prescribed time where you have to go back to Lotto line? So fantastic conversation coming up with Ray. As mentioned previously, Patrick Johnston going to join us as well. We'll talk some Thatcher Demko with him, Petey, Hoglander, whether or not he thinks they're in trouble heading to Nashville. All hands on deck here as we talk Vancouver Canucks hockey in Game 3, in advance of Game 3 of their series against Nashville. Ben Moss Jewelers, proudly Canadian-owned, operated, a history dating back more than 100 years. 5 locations in BC, Willowbrook Mall in Langley, Coquitlam Center. Committed to customer satisfaction. You can check out the large selection of Canadian mine diamonds, lab-grown diamonds. These mine diamonds are available with a payment plan to suit your needs. For more information, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, shine bright. One of the cool things about the Stanley Cup playoffs these days, of course, is, well, gaming, betting. As we know, sports gambling is becoming a thing. Across North America.
Now a thing.
Well, it is absolutely a thing. We're thrilled to welcome, I was thinking in comparison to our friends in England who bet on 2 flies,
that's right,
up a wall.
Yes.
But yes, we're thrilled to welcome Bet365 here as our sports betting partner just in time for the 2024 playoffs. We'll be here with Bet365 to provide you all the news, analysis, lines, betting options for the playoffs until one team is left standing in June. And Blake, on my Bet365 best bet today, well, we've talked about it already. How long can JT Miller and that top line be as quiet as it has been through 2 games? I shouldn't say quiet. They're noisy. They're just not getting on the score sheet. They have tons of chances. So far, no goals. I have to think that changes at some point. I'm getting frisky. I'm looking at a 2-point night for Miller, paying 3.40 on your Bet365 best bet.
I got very tempted on JT Miller being the first goal scorer of the game because it pays out at 10. It's a long odd, but I just have a feeling JT Miller's arriving here in this series. But instead, the one I'm really going to advise you is you're not going to see the over-under on Elias Pettersson shots at 2.5 very often. And we all know why it's at 2.5. But it pays out at 230. Just by comparison, Philip Forsberg's over-under is 4.5. All you need is Elias Pettersson to be assertive and figure out the way. And you know he's motivated, folks. 3 shots on goal pays out at 230.
That is not a big total, particularly when you consider that Elias Pettersson had 207 shots on goal in the regular season.
And he had 9 shot attempts. Like, it was a freaky game. Yeah, he can do this.
Bet365 is the largest sports betting platform globally. Open an account with Bet365 today and use promo code VANBONUS. VANBONUS, all together, all one word, to bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365.
A little update from practice, by the way. Elias Lindholm is on the first PP unit instead of Connor Garland.
Yeah,
I don't mind that.
I can abide that.
Mind that.
Yeah. He's pretty nifty at deflecting pucks. He's got a pretty good shot. You know, Garland, for me, it's more of a puck retrieval, greasy, board battle, 5-on-5 score.
Yeah.
So, I did notice Garland on the power play a little bit in game 2, but also I think that's the right move.
They just don't use PP2 that often either. And
no,
Lindholm's size and strength is probably going to be useful.
Yeah, although I say this, the way PP1 is going, I almost felt myself thinking, let's just try the other guys just for the sake of a change up here. Sad day in the world of hockey. Sad day here in Vancouver with hockey. First to the passing of the legendary Hockey Night in Canada voice, Bob Cole, at age 90. And his daughter reports he was healthy till the end there in St. John's, Newfoundland, and surrounded by family for many generations of hockey fans. Bob Cole was the voice of the biggest games and the biggest moments. I cannot tell you how many times working in sports talk for more than a decade now, someone has broken out a Bob Cole this or a Bob Cole that impression, moment, what have you. I've tweeted it out, but I will remember the 2002 Joe Sakic scores call for the rest of my life. I mean, I still get chills here.
Somebody could mention Joe Sakic in any other context, and in your head, at the very least, if not out of your mouth, comes Joe Sakic.
Yeah. I still remember, I still picture Crystal at the Loose Moose Tavern on Front Street in Toronto, Blake. Are you familiar with that establishment? Right downtown. We were sitting at a table at the front, and he scores, and they win the gold, and people forget it was the first gold medal for men's hockey at the Olympics in 50 years for Canada. Remember, we had lost in Nagano, crushing defeat to Dominik Hasek and the Czechs, and really so much was on the line in that tournament, right? Like, we're still the best at hockey, right? Like, we had the insecure questions that were piling on.
Hey, we talked about the appealing for referees. Gretzky, remember?
Oh, Gretzky and the rant.
Yeah.
They all hate us, and to watch that collection of players play as fine a game as they did, and were they magnificent that day. But the Sakic goal to put it away, and Cole's call of surely that's got to be it. Oh,
I mean, I don't know about you. Guys like Gallivan and Foster Hewitt are, they're like things I heard in the museum, in the Hall of Fame. Like,
me too.
They're not personal memories. Bob Cole's the personal memory. Like, Bob Cole's the voice of hockey for me.
Oh, yes.
At my age,
And I don't want people to take this the wrong way. Bob Cole for me was the last of the Hockey Night in Canada lead play-by-play men that had a voice that could have come out of a crackling radio in the 50s.
Yes, yeah.
And that's nothing against Chris Cuthbert. It's not that he's got a better or worse voice than any of the guys. It's just he's different. But Cole, Hewitt, Kelly, Gallivan, they had a certain tenor, a certain pitch to them, a certain way of calling the game. And a lot of it was based on Bob started on CBC radio. A lot of it went back to the radio days because, as you well know, Blake, it's a different call on radio. You have to be a little bit more descriptive. And so, Bob came up through that and then made an extraordinary adjustment to television with the economy of words. Like he understood that medium as well. Well, there's pictures there. I just have to describe what I'm seeing.
Here
I don't have to get
three of them.
So whether it's the Joe Sack, the other one, of course, in the 91 Cup final at the Igloo, look at Lemieux. Oh my heavens. What a goal. What a move. Lemieux. Oh, baby. And just about the greatest goal you could ever see, right? With Lemieux splitting those North Star defensemen.
Yeah.
And then sliding the puck in as he crashes. And Cole absolutely nailed it like no broadcaster has ever nailed a play-by-play call.
And if you heard this is the tough spot that current broadcasters are in. A lot of these calls, the current broadcaster tried it.
It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work. No. We'd call it contrived.
Yeah.
And even if Bob Cole hadn't done it and we didn't think it was copying Bob Cole per se, it just, I don't know, he made it all work. It was fabulous stuff.
Yeah, it sure was. So our condolences to Bob Cole's friends and family. There are scores of them across the country. I've been texting with John Shannon, of course. John, a good friend of Bob's for years and years. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about Bob Cole when John joins us next week. And I suspect there will be an extraordinary tribute on the broadcast tonight to a figure who helped build Hockey Night in Canada into what it was.
The modern Hockey Night in Canada.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. More locally here, of course, today marks the 5-year passing of our beloved friend and colleague, Jason Botchford. And I'll read Catherine Botchford's tweet about it today. Of course, Kat, a friend of the show, we saw her a couple of weeks ago when she was in town for the Botchford Project reunion. Catherine tweeting, "Oh, how this day weighs heavy on my heart. 5 years ago today, we lost Jason. I can still hear his infectious laugh and him saying, 'Bro, do your deeks.' Gone way too soon, but never, ever forgotten." We miss him tremendously, and we will be tributing him in the fall at an event. We're hoping to do that this past weekend, but we'll do it in the fall at an event where we can get together and remember him and raise some money in his name. I know many have said this week, what Jason would say, what Jason would write.
Oh, yeah.
About this Canucks series, because we are, as our friends are saying here at the Nation Network, we have an army. We're far from the Sea of Grandlands, right? And all the little catchphrases that Jason
I have an idea.
Our...
Bro, do your shots. That's probably what he would say, because that was imploring, of course, the young Elias Pettersson to just have confidence and do what he knows best.
Right. And of course, we'll never forget that, Elias wins the Calder Trophy. He gets asked a question about it and sort of immediately pivots to Jason and sending condolences out to Jason's family and friends from that stage. That was quite meaningful. And we're thinking of Catherine and the 3 children today, as well as his father, John, and his brother, Derek.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com. Hey, you. No, not you. You. Are you an owner-operator? Do you have a fleet of trucks or cars? Well, CalPro Plus might be the dedicated tire program just for you.
Free program includes exclusive deals and savings, price match guarantee, flexible financing, and preferred pricing on everything you drive.
Also, you get a dedicated member support line. That means that you can get questions answered. Also, they'll source and recommend the right tire for you, your application, and your budget.
Cal Tire's network of 260 plus stores are here to help so you can focus on the road ahead. Sign up for free at calproplus.com. Our next guest is brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Designed Whistler Golf Club. Patrick Johnston covers the Canucks for the Province and Post Media. He joins us usually on Thursdays. How much trouble you think they're in? 1-1 heading back to Nashville. Our next guest is brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Designed Whistler Golf Club. Counting down to opening day on May 10th. Club reminds organizers of groups of 12 or more. Time to lock in those tee times. The prime times are filling up fast for the summer of 2024. And just for reaching out to hold that tee time, you, the organizer, plays for free. Whistler Golf Club takes care of the rest. Tell us about your group. Go to whistlergolf.com/groups. And of course, follow the spring preparations and the Bears at Whistler Golf on social. Here he is, ESPN hockey analyst, Sportsnet Canucks analyst, the one and only Mr. Ray Ferraro. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little scrambly this morning. I woke up in Toronto. Got home at 8:40. Uber home in my car going to Langley to watch Riley play soccer. So I'm a little discombobulated, but I'm really happy I came back to this glorious West Coast day.
Is this not just another day in the life and times of Ray Ferraro?
And I don't want to tease you here. We had about 8 days of nothing but sun. So,
that's right.
And you missed all
You
of
were
it.
in New York, but it was gorgeous here.
Yeah, I do notice when I notice the weather, honestly, and because just like you're reading the golf read, I'm like, ooh, that could be a day I could have played 9 holes. I could have hit balls. But anyway, first 4 days of the playoffs were awesome. And we get a break because you may have heard the NFL draft is this weekend.
Yes, yeah.
And so we pick back up Monday of next week.
All right. Big picture thoughts on the Canucks Predators series. What struck you watching these games, Ray?
There is no room. There's no space. The loss of Demko, of course, is enormous, even though, Vancouver checks and defends so well. I mean, you're taking a game changer out of the lineup. The power play, Pettersson, like there's all the stuff that's really obvious sometimes is the big story. And, the other night they lose. It's, they had multiple power plays in the first period. And if you just cash one of them, you just feel so much better about yourself. And, I'm doing the Boston-Toronto series, the last 2 games anyway. And Boston had come into the playoffs and their power play was awful. One of the worst in the league for the last month. And they made nice plays and things, but somehow they get 2 power play goals in game 1. They get another one in game 2. They get another one last night. Like all of a sudden now the power play can't wait to get out there. And it feels like, Pettersson and the power play need something like that to ease the shackles a little bit.
Vastly different games if the power play works in either of those 2 games.
So this is your wheelhouse, Ray. I mean, God knows you made hay on the power play for all those years, 408 goals. What are they doing that is wrong, or what aren't they doing with that man advantage unit? Because it's more than just these last 2 games, right? The power play really has been a thing post All-Star break.
It's funny, I just did an interview in Pittsburgh. They're talking about what's going on for next year, and we talked about the Penguins power play. It's got 4 Hall of Famers. You'd think it would be zipping along. I think it was 31st this year. Like, it would be hard to be worse than that power play was. And the one thing that stands out to me when I do games with the Rangers, who have an amazing power play, is, and I use them as an example because I think it can be pretty similar to Vancouver's, is nobody has a set spot. They start in one spot. Fox plays up high, and then Zibanejad might be on his right, he might be on his left. Panarin might be down low, he might be up high. The only constant is Kreider's in front of the net. And what that's changed over since when I played is penalty killers used to stay in the same place, so the power play could stay in the same place. And it's, there's a couple of plays, you don't need 8, you need a couple, and then you have to execute. So for me, it would be more movement, more quick puck movement, and then have the mindset of shot, retrieve, shot, as opposed to looking for the perfect shot. The other caveat to all that is, like, I don't know, how many shots did Nashville block the other night? Like 100? It was incredible. It was like they were backboards. And so I watched David Pastrnak a lot, and one of my favorite players. And one thing he does is, so if you could just imagine Pettersson in that spot, instead of waiting for the one-timer, you're cocked and ready to shoot it, as the puck's coming, you move towards the puck. Now you've changed the defender's blocking lane. And Pastrnak does it really well. And it's a big change because a lot of guys don't do it. And it's probably harder to do than I think. But that's something you can think about, and you always got to find a new way because the penalty killers are always looking at your video and looking at your tendencies. And as you said, Blake, a power play goal in either game would have changed the complexion of either of them.
Andrew Brunette a little bit, a lot, in fact, and you might know just, approximately vaguely what he's thinking now. I mean, he said that he doesn't want to play like he played in the third period all the time. That's for sure. That might just open up a little bit of space for the Canucks in and of itself if he makes an adjustment. But that's the chess match of this, isn't it? Is that Rick Tocchet's thinking about adjustments, Brunette's thinking about adjustments, and how those jive with each other. It's going to be very interesting.
I'm sure Bruno didn't leave the game the other night and say, that is the way, that is Nashville Predator hockey. They never had the puck.
Yeah.
But they won. And so while you think that, you would go, yeah, but we won. So it's 1-1, and now we've got to be better. The one thing I think will change in Nashville for a good portion of the second half of the season, certainly through that 18-game unbeaten streak, they play super fast. They don't want to carry the puck through the neutral zone. They want to move it quickly. So, you have to almost, assume the neutral zone starts kind of inside their blue line, and they're just firing it up, tipping it, and chasing it. And then, they get in the zone, and they, as we saw, Forsberg's he's a fabulously talented player. So I think Nashville would like to do that a bit more. They're at home. They've got a lot of guys that haven't got a lot of playoff experience either. I think there's a chance for this game to game 3, to really loosen up a little bit. Whether either team really wants it, it's going to be super loud. They're going to have the home crowd. They're going to have lots of energy. And Vancouver's going to have to, if they really defend well, I think there's going to be more chances there. Now, they're going to have to defend. They're going to have to defend that speed, but I think there's chances there.
How does Pettersson break out of this slump, Ray?
Everybody's different. I don't know. I don't know him at all. It looks like he wears things pretty heavy. You can see the frustration. Anybody in the league would have been frustrated to miss the net that he missed on, right? Anybody, because you just don't get that very often. It's easy to say, just relax, don't think, and just react. It looks to me like he really thinks his way around the ice right now. And I would say one of his great strengths that makes him the player the Canucks signed to this deal and have seen over the last few seasons is instinctually he's a really good player. He seems to know where all the trouble is, where all the open space is. But right now, he seems like he's got to think about it. Now, how you get from where he is to where you need to be, that's a hard thing to do because it's not like you don't want him just running around and running into guys. Like, that doesn't do any good either. He's got to play with the puck on his stick. He's got to believe that he's a good player again, right? Like, Jim Montgomery talks about Pavel Zacha, completely different player, but that he said the other day, he goes, we just keep reminding him how good he is. He goes, because sometimes he forgets. And I'm sure the pressure and the stress is weighing pretty heavy on him.
For him too, right? Like, he couldn't win the other night. He shot early, all of them were blocked. Then he starts to pass because he's thinking probably to said everything's getting blocked. I'll pass. But then he passed when he really should have tried another shot again. And then he goes back to shooting late and they're all blocked again. Like, he couldn't buy a break either. Although, do you make your own breaks? Do you fake more? Like, I don't even know what to suggest to him at this point.
You know what it looked like? As you were running through that, Blake, I was thinking of a quarterback that sees a receiver, doesn't believe he's open, checks off, oh boy, now I'm in trouble. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to find another read, and then everything's gone. He's got my reads are my strength. Right? He's not the fastest guy. He's not the strongest guy. His ability to read the play has always set him apart. He just knows where the right play is. And right now, it's like he doesn't trust it. He's like a quarterback that doesn't trust that he's made the right read. And you're right. Like, you can screw yourself right into the ground with it. And pretty soon the puck, honestly, this will sound stupid, the puck feels heavy. It can't. Right? It's the same puck. It's the same puck you've been playing with since you were a kid, but it feels heavy on your stick. It doesn't jump off your stick. Then you start thinking about that. Then you're like, geez, my legs are a little heavy today. Like, it's one thing after another. And until the player in the slump, and I would throw, just because I did it last night, Mitch Marner into the same thing. It's like they're great instinctual players that are thinking their way around the ice. And it really slows your game down.
How do you feel about Casey DeSmith going forward?
He's a average NHL goalie. He's a backup.
Our next guest is brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club. Counting down to opening day on May 10th. Club reminds organizers of groups of 12 or more, time to lock in those tee times. The prime times are filling up fast for the summer of 2024. And just for reaching out to hold that. Our next guest is brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club. Counting down to opening day on May 10th. Club reminds organizers of groups of 12 or more, time to lock in those tee times. The prime times are filling up fast for the summer of 2024. And just for reaching out to hold that tee time, you, the organizer, plays for free. Whistler Golf Club takes care of the rest. Tell us about your group. Go to whistlergolf.com/groups. And of course, follow the spring preparations and the Bears at Whistler Golf. Our next guest is brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club. Counting down to opening day on May 10th. Club reminds organizers of groups of 12 or more, time to lock in those tee times. The prime times are filling up fast for the summer of 2024. And just for reaching out to hold that tee time, you, the organizer, plays for free. Whistler Golf Club takes care of the rest. Tell us about your group. Go to whistlergolf.com/groups. And of course, follow the spring preparations and the Bears at Whistler Golf on social. Here he is, ESPN hockey analyst, Sportsnet Canucks analyst, the one and only Mr. Ray Ferraro. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little scrambly this morning. I woke up in Toronto. Got home at 8:40. Uber home in my car going to Langley to watch Riley play soccer. So I'm a little discombobulated, but I'm really happy I came back to this glorious West Coast day.
Is this not just another day in the life and times of Ray Ferraro?
And I don't want to tease you here. We had about 8 days of nothing but sun. So,
That's right.
and you missed all
You
of
were
it.
in New York, but it was gorgeous here.
Yeah, I did, and I do notice when I notice the weather, honestly, and because just like you're reading the golf read, I'm like, ooh, that could be a day I could have played 9 holes. I could have hit balls. But anyway, first 4 days of the playoffs were awesome, and we get a break because you may have heard the NFL draft is this weekend.
Yes, yeah.
And so we pick back up Monday of next week.
All right. Big picture thoughts on the Canucks Predators series. What struck you watching these games, Ray?
There is no room. There's no space. The loss of Demco, of course, is enormous, even though, Vancouver checks and defends so well. I mean, you're taking a game changer out of the lineup. The power play, Pettersson, like there's all the stuff that's really obvious sometimes is the big story. And, the other night they lose, it's, they had multiple power plays in the first period. And if you just cash one of them, you just feel so much better about yourself. And, I'm doing the Boston-Toronto series, the last 2 games anyway. And Boston had come into the playoffs and their power play was awful. One of the worst in the league for the last month. And they made nice plays and things, but somehow they get 2 power play goals in game 1. They get another one in game 2. They get another one last night. Like all of a sudden now the power play can't wait to get out there. And it feels like, Pettersson and the power play need something like that to ease the shackles a little bit.
Vastly different games if the power play works in either of those 2 games.
So this is your wheelhouse, Ray. I mean, God knows you made hay on the power play for all those years, 408 goals. What are they doing that is wrong, or what aren't they doing with that man advantage unit? Because it's more than just these last 2 games, right? The power play really has been a thing post All-Star break.
It's funny, I just did an interview in Pittsburgh. They're talking about what's going on for next year, and we talked about the Penguins power play. It's got 4 Hall of Famers. You'd think it would be zipping along. I think it was 31st this year. Like, it would be hard to be worse than that power play was. And the one thing that stands out to me when I do games with the Rangers, who have an amazing power play, is, and I use them as an example because I think it can be pretty similar to Vancouver's, is nobody has a set spot. They start in one spot. Fox plays up high, and then Zibanejad might be on his right, he might be on his left. Panarin might be down low, he might be up high. The only constant is Kreider's in front of the net. And what that's changed over since when I played is penalty killers used to stay in the same place so the power play could stay in the same place. And it's, there's a couple of plays. You don't need 8. You need a couple. And then you have to execute. So for me, it would be more movement, more quick puck movement, and then have the mindset of shot, retrieve, shot, as opposed to looking for the perfect shot. The other caveat to all that is, like, I don't know, how many shots did Nashville block the other night? Like 100? It was incredible. It was like they were backboards. And so I watched David Pastrnak a lot, and one of my favorite players. And one thing he does is, so if you could just imagine Pettersson in that spot, instead of waiting for the one-timer, you're cocked and ready to shoot it, as the puck's coming, you move towards the puck. Now you've changed the defender's blocking lane. And Pastrnak does it really well. And it's a big change because a lot of guys don't do it. And it's probably harder to do than I think. But that's something you can think about, and you always got to find a new way because the penalty killers are always looking at your video and looking at your tendencies. And as you said, Blake, a power play goal in either game would have changed the complexion of either of them.
Andrew Brunette a little bit, a lot, in fact, and you might know just, approximately vaguely what he's thinking now. I mean, he said that he doesn't want to play like he played in the third period all the time. That's for sure. that might just open up a little bit of space for the Canucks in and of itself if he makes an adjustment. But that's the chess match of this, isn't it? Is that Rick Tocchet's thinking about adjustments, Brunette's thinking about adjustments, and how those jive with each other. It's going to be very interesting.
I'm sure Bruno didn't leave the game the other night and say, that is Nashville Predator hockey. They never had the puck.
Yeah.
But they won. And so while you think that, you would go, yeah, but we won. So it's 1-1, and now we've got to be better. The one thing I think will change in Nashville for a good portion of the second half of the season, certainly through that 18-game unbeaten streak, like they play super fast. They don't want to carry the puck through the neutral zone. They want to move it quickly. So, like, you have to almost, excuse me, assume the neutral zone starts kind of inside their blue line, and they're just firing it up, tipping it, and chasing it. And then, they get in the zone, and they, as we saw, Forsberg's he's a fabulously talented player. So I think Nashville would like to do that a bit more. They're at home. They've got a lot of guys that haven't got a lot of playoff experience either. I think there's a chance for this game to game 3, to really loosen up a little bit. Whether either team really wants it, it's going to be super loud. They're going to have the home crowd. They're going to have lots of energy. And Vancouver's going to have to, if they really defend well, I think there's going to be more chances there. Now, they're going to have to defend. They're going to have to defend that speed, but I think there's chances there.
How does Pettersson break out of this slump, Ray?
Everybody's different. I don't know. I don't know him at all. It looks like he wears things pretty heavy. Like you can see the frustration. Anybody in the league would have been frustrated to miss the net that he missed on, right? Like anybody, because you just don't get that very often. It's easy to say, just relax, don't think, and just react. It looks to me like he really thinks his way around the ice right now. And I would say one of his great strengths that makes him the player the Canucks signed to this deal and have seen over the last few seasons is instinctually he's a really good player. Like he seems to know where all the trouble is, where all the open space is. But right now, he seems like he's got to think about it. Now, how you get from where he is to where you need to be, that's a hard thing to do, because it's not like you don't want him just running around and running into guys. Like that doesn't do any good either. He's got to play with the puck on his stick. He's got to believe that he's a good player again, right? Like Jim Montgomery talks about Pavel Zacha, completely different player, but that he said the other day, he goes, we just keep reminding him how good he is. He goes, because sometimes he forgets. And I'm sure the pressure and the stress is weighing pretty heavy on him.
For him too, Ray, like he couldn't win the other night. He shot early, all of them were blocked. Then he starts to pass because he's thinking probably just said everything's getting blocked, I'll pass. But then he passed when he really should have tried another shot again. And then he goes back to shooting late and they're all blocked again. Like he couldn't buy a break either. Although, do you make your own breaks? Do you fake more? Like I don't even know what to suggest to him at this point.
You know what it looked like? As you were running through that, Blake, I was thinking of a quarterback that sees a receiver, doesn't believe he's open, checks off, oh boy, now I'm in trouble. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to find another read, and then everything's gone. He's got my reads are my strength. Right? He's not the fastest guy. He's not the strongest guy. His ability to read the play has always set him apart. He just knows where the right play is. And right now, it's like he doesn't trust it. He's like a quarterback that doesn't trust that he's made the right read. And you're right. Like, you can screw yourself right into the ground with it. And pretty soon the puck, honestly, this will sound stupid, the puck feels heavy. It can't. Right? It's the same puck. It's the same puck you've been playing with since you were a kid, but it feels heavy on your stick. It doesn't jump off your stick. Then you start thinking about that. Then you're like, geez, my legs are a little heavy today. Like, it's one thing after another. And until the player in the slump, and I would throw, just because I did it last night, Mitch Marner into the same thing. It's like they're great instinctual players that are thinking their way around the ice. And it really slows your game down.
How do you feel about Casey DeSmith going forward?
He's a average NHL goalie. He's a backup. That's why he's not the starter. But the one thing I've noticed about Casey is when he plays in short bursts, this is back to Pittsburgh, he's more than fine. He might not stylistically ever look like, the straight ahead, composed and compact. He gets a little loose in the crease sometimes, but he competes, he fights, he stops the puck. And if you play him in short bursts, that he's able to do that. It's like, if you even think back to the homestand, as the homestand carried on, he started to get a little leaky. So I don't know, UC Saros hasn't been lights out like we remember him from the past. They can win this series with DeSmith, if that's what you're asking. If it goes long, and even long, maybe they win and they move on, and Demko's still not ready, then I think you're going to see both goaltenders at some point, because that's just the nature of the position. You can, if you're a starter, you're a starter for a reason. If you're a backup, you're a backup for a reason. And usually it's the consistency over time. They don't need him to be good for 3 months. They need him to be good tomorrow and then Sunday, and then you go from there.
And they only need him to be good. They don't even need him to be great, Ray. I mean, they've defended quite well. It seems like a year since they've given up 30 shots on a hockey game, for heaven's sake. So it's not like he's going to be seeing a lot of rubber, most likely, particularly if Myers is back sooner rather than later. I mean, the Canucks continue to defend well, don't they?
It's funny, as they were getting their game back together, I'm reading about, and hearing, chit chat about, but they don't score like they did early in the year, but they were winning through this stretch. And I'm like, a year ago, everybody was begging for wins. Now you're not winning the right way, right? It's not going to be pretty, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, they are going to have to grind teams to a pulp, and they've really done a great job at it. Part of that means that when you get an opportunity on your power play, it has to help. Like, Vegas won the Stanley Cup, their power play's not great, or wasn't great. Jersey won it 1 year, their power play was last. The Kings won it those 2 years, and in 3, 1 year, their power play, I think it was dead last in the season and dead last in the playoffs. They won the cup, but they played a different way. So the Canucks version of that is grind, physical, defend, power play that works once in a while. 5-on-5, you have to be able to capitalize. It's a playoff style game, but man, it's a grindy, nervy game. Like, it's going to be rare that they're going to have a comfortable game, put it that way.
There's been all these concerns. There's been some good moments, though, throughout the course of the 2 games. Unfortunately for the general manager and the president and their associated staff, it's been people that have contracts that are coming up here. Dakota Joshua and Nikita Zadorov might very well be sort of the top 2 performers in their pay grade, within their pay grade, and both of those guys need contracts. But I mean, what do you do? It's not like you're not going to hope for that, but it just so happens these contracts to come up here are playing pretty well.
Yeah, so I don't think, I mean, certainly, as you guys know, I've never been in management. I don't, whether somebody has a good 6-week run or 2-week run, that really shouldn't change what your view of your team build is for next year. Like, if you're looking at Dakota Joshua, whether he has a good series here or not, you're looking at what he's done over the course of 7 months. That's your evaluation. That's going to be your comparables that you're going to build. Anybody can have a good playoff, right? And it can be short. It could be John Druce. Hell, it could be me. I did it one year, and they didn't all of a sudden come with $5 million to me.
But they should have, Ray. They should have.
They should have. What a mistake. Or not really. They actually made the right call. I just look at it like these are problems that you're going to have every year. Sometimes you're a lousy team and you have big contract decisions. They're going to have significant decisions to make, and they're a good team. Like, it's a good thing, but it doesn't mean it's easy. You'll get a little bit of cap room with some of the contracts that come off the books. You got to add Pettersson's extension in. I'm sure you guys have been through all of this. You get the $4 million or whatever the raise is from the league, and there's going to be some really tough decisions to make. And you only could put so much sand in the jar, but these two guys are, they're not hurting their cases, that's for sure.
Back on Pettersson for a second. We've seen Lotto line in glimpses in games 1 and games 2. Offensive zone faceoffs a couple times on the fly. If Petey isn't going early in game 3, do they have to go Lotto line in a more permanent way, or do you think they will go Lotto line in a more permanent way? Just get him playing with some better offensive players than the two guys he's with now.
Well, maybe. I guess it would also depend, Matt, what the rest of the game looks like. Like, you're not going to, if things are going well and his line's not generating a lot, but they're kind of holding their own, then you're probably not going to blow up everything else just to see if you can get him going. But if the game doesn't feel comfortable, maybe you go to that. Right? Like, the one thing I think we've seen from talk this year is the willingness to move people around in game if things aren't working. People flip-flop around a little bit. Rick is a very gut feel guy. And part of that is you've got to make that evaluation 3, 4, 5 shifts into a game. Because if nothing's happening and your team's got nothing going on, you're not going to wait 40 minutes to make a change.
On the Nashville shot blocking and, what you said earlier about, Brunette certainly not coming out of that game saying, oh, that's Nashville Predators hockey. And I completely,
By the way, Bruno never blocked any shots. I want to make perfectly clear. None.
Especially not in Atlanta. Clearly Nashville. So clearly Nashville doesn't necessarily want to play that impotent a game offensively where they're required to block that many shots. But, this is a short series now. It's a best of 5. Can Vancouver play the same way and think that's going to be
just keep
good
going,
enough?
Just keep hammering away.
Keep hammering away and seeing what their courage level is and seeing if you get more through, or do they have to adapt a little tactically?
Well, but here's the thing. So if they're blocking a bunch of shots, of course, that means you got the puck all the time, which means you're not defending very much, which is a really good thing. If the puck's never getting to the net, maybe you've got to shoot it off the side of the net. Maybe you've got to try for some tips around the net. But you can't not shoot the puck. You can't hold it and hold it and hold it and hope you get one chance here and there. Like, that just never works, because eventually you're gonna turn it over. And now you're tired from skating around the offensive zone and they break out of the zone. A series is funny, like, at various points in the series, it might seem hopeless. And at various points, you can see that you're starting to get to them a little bit. But when you're in the series, it never feels like, it never really feels like you've got a great handle on it, because things change so fast. Like, let's say they go down to Nashville and they get 6 or 7 more pucks through, right? Not 20, just 6 or 7. And one of those 6 or 7 hits the goalie and there's a rebound and you bang it in the net. Game's completely different. Like, it changes. The margins are so small. And I think most people felt this series would be really close. So the win and loss is going to be really tiny. And maybe you shoot for tips a little bit, but you're still going to be as aggressive shooting the puck as you can be. Get it at the net, make them block it, wear them down if you can, stay on the body. This is a grindy black and blue series. I don't see any way it's going to change.
Finally, Ray, at the age of 90, the legendary voice Bob Cole passes away today. I'm sure you've got memories watching as a fan of some favorite guy. First of all, I'll put you on the spot here, and I should have done my homework on this. Do you know, did he call you any great goals of the 408 or beyond playoff goals of you? Did you ever have somebody get you a clip of Bob Cole calling a Ray Ferraro goal?
No, my best playoff, Chris Cuthbert was actually on our calls. And so I've got it. When I started working with Chris, it was really funny that
That's funny. Yeah.
His calls on it. Not with Bob. He was always on the big games, as he should have been. But favorite call. I mean, when the Russians were playing in Philadelphia and they left the ice, and it's one of his iconic calls. It's a long time ago, but they're going home. They're going home, and it was just like. Everything with Bob was an economy of words, and you didn't need lots of words. There was not a lot of flowers. It was just, this is what's happening. You didn't even, like all great play-by-plays, but I mean, Bob is the standard, was that you never even had to be watching the TV to know whether there was a chance coming or not.
That's right.
It was such a, such a direct approach. And it just felt like this is big because Bob is here.
Right.
His call on Mario Lemieux's goal when he turned around the Minnesota North Stars was amazing too. I mean, but if you interview 30 people, they'll have 35 great, I remember this call or I remember that call. He did so many great games. The call from Salt Lake City when Sekeres scored, just so many of them, and we can only be so lucky to get to 90, and that was a life well lived. And Mr. Cole, as most of us always called him when we saw him, he was the gold standard.
You're so right about not having to watch, because his anticipation in his heyday was extraordinary.
You just knew by the run in.
Exactly, the inflections of his voice that something was about to happen on the screen watching the game. And Gio Sakic scores. I mean, the hairs on my arms still stand up when I just think of that. And it gets lost a little bit now, Ray, because we had Sydney here in 2010. But people forget that was the first Canadian men's Olympic gold in 50 years, and the biggest moment for Canadian hockey in 15 years after the Canada Cup victory in Hamilton, which Bob didn't call. So Joe Sakic scores to me is his Mona Lisa. Yeah,
beautiful. He just was just an amazing broadcaster, and you use the word his anticipation. Like he just seemed to feel where the play was going to go, and that's a gift. That just really is.
And old school on a couple of levels. Number one, he was just going to call the game, right? Like a lot of play-by-play guys now want to storytell this, that, and the other thing, analyze.
That's true.
Bob was only going to describe what was happening in front of him on the ice. And also old school in this regard is he did not call club games, right? Like he wasn't there through the week doing the regional games. He just flew in from St. John's to usually Toronto, but in other years and other playoffs, other spots, and dropped in and called the big national Saturday game. Yeah. And we don't get that.
As Ray said, you knew it was big if he was on the job.
Absolutely. Sir, thank you.
It was big.
Yeah. Greg, great catching up. Thanks for the time. Safe travels. Enjoy the series you call, and we'll
good
catch
luck
up
to
soon.
Riley too. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm just about there. So thanks for filling the trip.
Yeah. Glad we could be your company on the long road to Langley.
Have a good one, Ray.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now. In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey set up as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. golfnorthlands.com. Patrick Johnston covers the Canucks for the Province and Post Media. He joins us usually on Thursdays. How much trouble you think they're in? 1-1 heading back to Nashville.
I was talking to someone yesterday about this, and they said, you know what, goaltending is nonsense. It's all about whether you can score. And in many ways, you think about it, they scored 1 goal in game 2, and that's kind of the story there. I mean, the luck, the fact they couldn't finish, open looks, hit the post, all that possession. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. So they controlled the play, they controlled the game, couldn't make the goals go in, and that more than anything is your story. I mean, I think we all said in the building anyway, those of us in press row, that could have easily been a 5. We didn't think it was, but it could have easily been a 5-3 game for the Canucks. Right?
Yeah, totally.
So at the end of the day, listen, Casey DeSmith is what he is, right? He's gonna play to the best of his ability, but at the end of the day, you got to score goals, and that's what matters here.
I find great follow-up.
They got 5 goals in the series.
Yeah,
the goal scorers: Joshua twice.
Yeah,
Zadorov, Lindholm, Suter.
Well, four on a goalie.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 per game on goalies. That's not good enough. I do find great solace in the out-of-town scoreboard, though, because it reminds you on a bigger sample how individual these games are. Who thought the LA Kings could skate the very next game with the Edmonton Oilers, and it happened. I mean, there is every bit the possibility that Elias Pettersson looks great. Casey DeSmith, I don't even know that he needs to stand on his head. He just needs to be good.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, but all those things could happen. I mean, they are silos. They really are.
And the point has been made by several people now. I think that, I think Jim Rutherford clearly has been making the rounds on this one. He won 3 Stanley Cups, and in every Stanley Cup victory, there was a large element of the backup goaltender involved. So It's about your team, and it's about everything else you do beyond what goes on in your crease.
I struggle with that one a little bit because Casey DeSmith is not a backup like Marc-Andre Fleury and like Cam Ward.
Sure.
Right? Matt Murray is the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can see the line drawn straight to Matt Murray.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. And I do think that is a fair counter. And I go, you look at the Canucks' own experience, right? Casey DeSmith is not Corey Schneider, right? He's not an alternative. He is just the other guy, right? He's the guy that you need to have. And he's been a strong backup as backups go. He's been probably the best backup they've had since Eddie Lack. But at the end of the day,
since Thatcher Demko.
Well, Thatcher Demko as a backup wasn't actually that great. People forget 1920, before everything stopped, the world stopped. Jacob Markstrom got hurt, as exclusively reported by yours truly.
Oh, really? Okay.
Who could
anyway, but Thatcher Demko was already struggling. It was already starting to go south. It wasn't on him. The overall team kind of. And that is the lesson. And I wrote about that. There's a mentality aspect to all this too, right? You have to press on. And that was the last question I asked Rick Tocchet after the game on Tuesday night. I said, what's the challenge now? There is a mental challenge. You fight for everyone on and on and on, but nonetheless, what do you got to do here? How does this affect morale? And he said, I have to tell guys like Holglander, it's going to be okay. I have to keep these young guys in. We keep working. These things happen. These are bumps in the road, and you have to succeed and just take a deep breath and calm down and get on,
Speaking of goaltending, you have done some reporting on Thatcher Demko
Well,
century. Pray tell.
Yeah, I mean, following on from Woodley, what Woodley was reporting yesterday, that it's likely out through the end of the second round. You know, all my sources saying, yeah. I mean, of course, Woodley is as well connected as it gets, so it's no shock there. I mean, no surprise as well. Probably there's discussion of surgery. We'll see what happens. You know, I don't know this for sure, but the logic to me in this is if we all think, and I think we all think the previous injury was an MCL sprain. I saw the reaction. You know, I don't know this. I haven't confirmed this, but my reaction suggested to me that was a guy who's now dealing with a meniscus issue. But it could be, you know, at this point, clearly it's a knee problem, and it's probably, if it's a new issue and the old issue was an MCL, well, it's, and he can play, it's not ACL, it would be a meniscus thing, and that's incredibly difficult. The number of people who have said to me, why doesn't he just play through it? I'm like, I don't know. You ever had a knee problem? You ever tried to play goalie at the professional level? Like, the idea that you can play through a structural issue to me is just, I mean, you can try, but I don't think you're going to you're not, the person may be there, but you're not going to get anything close to what you really need. And so at that point, what's the difference between that and Casey DeSmith?
Yeah. Well, is this injury one of those, like, will he do any further damage if he tried to play through it? If it was pain management? Like, if there's no damage that can be done to it, and it's just pain management.
I mean, if you've got a meniscus, if you've got a meniscus tear, the tear will continue. You're going to need surgical repair, right? I'm going to pull a Moj here, and I once had a meniscus injury, you know, but there's a real issue of it catching. Like, it's a functional problem. Like, right. It's not structurally the way it's supposed to be. It's not like an MCL sprain is something maybe you can battle through because it's swelling and there's some fraying, but it's not like the joint isn't still fully operational. Like, this is a meniscus tear, there's a piece of tissue that's out of place. And, you know, if you think about the way your knee is, and I'm doing the demonstration for everybody who's listening to this with my hands, but, you know, it is meant to do one thing, and it's not meant to have other options in it. And right now it sounds like there's other options in it, and that's not good.
Podcast audience really missed some good fisting there from Patrick Johnston.
X-rated podcast now.
I played on an MCL. I still feel it today, 30 years later. So, but do you think
racquetball or no?
Football to basketball.
There you go.
Couldn't miss 2 weeks of basketball season after doing the knee in football, and 30 years later, on mornings like this morning.
Racquetball? How old do you think he is? Come on.
Racquetball.
Well, that was the Moj thing. He was playing racquetball, remember?
Well, just 10 years older than him.
It's true.
But of course, we could be getting to an Ilya Mikheyev style decision here, right? Like, do you want to hold out hope and hope you go deep enough that he can return to the lineup? Or do you just, if it does require surgery, do the surgery and make sure he's good to go?
But that's still a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
And you know what? If he's back for opening night or he's back for November 1st, does it really matter? On that.
Depends on what it is. I mean, it all depends in the end what it actually is, right? Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
If it's cleaning up meniscus, it's actually, you can get back pretty quick from that, but it's still surgery. Like,
but we're talking arthroscopic. You mean arthroscopic surgery? Is that what we're talking?
Well, I don't know. That part I don't know. But I'm just saying, if it's arthroscopic, you're pretty quick, right?
Yeah, it's pretty quick. Yeah.
You know, if you're repairing ligaments, that's a whole other question. And I don't know.
Blake and I had a pretty good debate yesterday with regards to the style of this series and whether Nashville could keep up all the shot blocking and emerge victorious. Now, I understand every bit of the analytics here that, you know, the shot attempts were so grossly in favor of the Vancouver Canucks. And if you keep that up over the long term, then you should have success. I'm just not sure
and
now.
You should have Nashville injuries.
And you should have some Nashville guys who are either not as courageous to block these shots because of the pain, or that they're some out. Players leave the series. I'm just not sure the long term is now a best of 5, right? Like, that's the thing about analytics in the playoffs. They don't always perfectly apply because these series are so short, comparatively speaking. What says you on this topic?
Well, listen, Andrew Brunette and Phil Forsberg were, very honest after the game when we talked to them that the way we played in the third period, it cannot go on. Like sitting in a shell, inevitably, as many shots as you may have blocked there, and as good as you may have protected the slot, at the end of the day, the Canucks did still create chances, and there were things before that, even when the Canucks weren't carrying the play quite as the way they were, that they, again, like I said, they could have scored, right? So hoping to sort of hold on for dear life is just not a way to go. And that, again, to go back to the goal scoring thing, I mean, that has been what Brunette has succeeded in getting his team to do in the second half here, which is taking the puck to the net, keeping the puck on their stick, playing at the other end of the ice. And, we actually, ironically, I think saw more of that in game one than we saw in game two. And so that's what it comes back to. Yeah, no, they know themselves. Even if the Canucks were struggling, they still created enough. Like if you go off expected goals, they should have scored a bunch of goals. Now, I don't think they actually got enough of the quality looks you need, but you go to what you really want to do. You shoot a little bit quicker. You start creating a few more rebounds. That you make a mess in front of the net. You get more screens in front of the goalie. Like just loose puck sticks on the ice, you're going to start getting stuff in. It's not a super efficient or highly aesthetic way to score goals, but it's there. And so you're right. Like the second game 3, game 4, like I do not think they're going to look like that. I think at the end of the day, you're going to see Nashville try to carry the play more. That will open them up. The Canucks will be looking for counters on that. Like there's going to be more. There's a lot to come in this series. I don't think there's any doubt.
Yeah. The key phrase, though, from Brunette and Forsberg is that we can't play like that in the third period.
Fair.
Because if you remove the shot attempts, even strength in the third period, which were 37-4 for Vancouver, and yes, totality 84-36 Vancouver, you can't win that way. But if you remove the third period, then it's just 47-32.
No, exactly.
Vancouver.
Yeah.
And Nashville can win that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agree, right?
Yeah. And like, look at how they built their lead, right? Like they took their chances. They took a couple moments. I mean, this is in the end, inevitably, this is what hockey certainly is, but I think most sports are at this level. It's about winning your little moments. And the Canucks won the little moments on Sunday, and Nashville won theirs on Tuesday. The Canucks, the little moments where Elias Pettersson missing the net, Pia Suter missing the net, the puck hitting the post. Like Phil Forsberg didn't do that. He made a fantastic move. He is a star player, and he beat the Canucks' number 7th defenseman in the corner, and he made it happen. He made a fantastic move and scored a goal, right? Like those things happened because they were ready. And in the end, the Canucks didn't bury those chances. And then the third period happened. You're right. And that's exactly it.
Instead of trying to feather pucks in, or rely purely on a slap pass if the shots aren't going through, are the Canucks capable of, and should they drive the net, even though that's not really their hallmark? Should they make a habit of that, if only just to switch it up?
I mean, yes, we've been talking about this all year, right? Like the idea of, they funnel them back to the point and they keep trying to do the same thing. And it's worked a lot. But at the end of the day, you got to try some other stuff. And I mean, look at the Garland, look like Connor Garland and Dakota Joshua had so much success, right? Like they were working the pucks down low, right? Like those were low to high passes a lot of the time, getting the puck
different, at least. Yes.
Different. I mean, the fundamental principle is the same, get the puck on top of the crease, right? But how it got there was a different way. And I mean, this is why I mentioned we do these Canucks coffee posts or further thoughts going forward. Like where's Niels Höglander? Like Niels Höglander has been a very effective player on this, right? I mean, it's not just Elias Pettersson, but where's Niels Höglander? Like he's a guy that's been getting in on the puck, making things happen. And when he's been successful, he's been either getting the puck to the net himself or he's had help doing so. And we haven't seen, he's basically got benched last game. He got put while they shifted to the star players, and a certain level, fair enough. But Niels Höglander he scored a bunch of goals this year. He's supposed to be in the mix, and those are the kind of guys you're supposed to, you're looking to be playoff performers, and you think he would be, but has been a non-factor. So that again goes to your point, Blake, is that the overall stylistic thing, they're still doing it, but the bits and pieces and the little variations they have in the lineup, they haven't all been working.
Very good point on Höglander, his first 2 Stanley Cup playoff games. So we've seen this before with young players. Well, I love Blake's question about, do you have to take the puck to net now? And for me, I wonder if that's Rick Tocchet Hockey 2.0 that we see next year.
Maybe.
Because, of course, the first thing about coaching is establish a system, establish a structure, establish as he talks about staples, non-negotiables, and stuff like that. The next level of coaching is to be able to adapt to certain opponents and employ different styles, different ways of skinning the cat. And I'm just not sure the Vancouver Canucks are quite there yet.
You know who might be his,
his
test subject, though?
Do they have multiple routes to victory, multiple structures and styles that they can employ and be successful?
Do you know who's been getting a sneak peek at Rick Tocchet 2.0? Do you know who might be the test subject of what you're just talking about? Vasily Podkolzin. All this private tutorship that he's been getting before and after practices. Vasily Podkolzin.
Hey, I'm with you, buddy. I think he could be a fascinating. I do actually. Like, well, come on.
Okay, no.
If your option is him or Sam Lafferty,
hold on. If we're talking next year and we're talking the future, that's a separate discussion. But in this series,
the option right now is him or Sam Lafferty. Like, Sam Lafferty's fine. I like the way he works hard, but like, who's going to play?
I would take PDG out myself, but yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just saying in terms of playing with someone with Pettersson, I think you keep Lafferty in the lineup, and again, let's see what Podkolzin, if he can shake Elias Pettersson back into relevance.
I'm game.
Why not?
Yeah.
What do you got to lose at this point, Matt?
Yeah.
The series.
You're already feeling.
No. You're not down love 3. It's 1-1. It's 1-1. And you dominated the play in game 2.
Oh, Vasily Podkolzin doesn't put you down 3-love either, though.
No. But
what are you afraid of, Matt?
We're not at the throw shit against the wall.
It's true.
Point of the series. I am A-okay if you want to go Podkolzin instead of Phil DiGiuseppe in game 3. A-okay. But I just think that Vasily on a white night, when he does not have a goal this year in the NHL in 19 games, he's got 2 freaking points.
PJ, he's not winning the Jack Adams over there. He's just not. He's not willing to take the chances to win the Jack Adams.
Goodness. Let's ask you the poll. Who's bigger key to victory in game 3? Pettersson, DeSmith, or feel free to go off the board?
Oh, Pettersson all the way.
Really?
Whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they need their stars to perform. He's a star player, in case you've heard.
Yeah, no. I just, to me, the goaltender is going to have a bigger effect on your winning and losing.
But he doesn't need to rise as high, right? Like,
okay.
An average
and
goaltender
you're allowed to
it.
interpret the poll question
Casey
as you
DeSmith
see.
doesn't score goals.
You're
and that's the
quite
issue.
right.
Yeah.
And at some point, you need a goal to win the hockey game.
Probably.
You need several goals.
Well, you need at least one. And that's one more than Vasily Podkolzin has in 19 NHL games.
See how we set him up for you there, Matt? You
just can't leave it behind, right? You can't move on.
Do you know where this stems from, Patrick? And I know you have to run, and I hate to delay you with internal show squabbles, but so I say Blake last week, okay, we'll do an X Factor. Give me an X Factor in the series. Okay. I picked Filip Hronek. I just thought, they get a great Filip Hronek, like in early part of the year. They have an incredible defense pair.
He thought he'd go with the 50-point defense.
Well, I mean, a level below the superstar, right? Not an all-star or anything like that. Just a very solid player. And there was a tale of two halves with Filip Hronek. He comes to me with Vasily Podkolzin. I go, like, is he even going to play? Like, how can you be an X Factor if you're not playing? And now,
guys, ever seen a WWE
after game one with Phil DiGiuseppe taking the penalty? I was like, okay, so are you going to double down here on Podkolzin, or are you just take your come up and move on?
You said, like, have you never seen a WWE episode? Like, the curtain opens and he's coming down.
All I'll say this. R.I.P. my mentions if Vasily gets in.
That's right.
And scores the goal in this
That's
series.
right.
You'll never hear the end of it.
Oh, Sekeres and Price. Sekeres and Price, the essence of sports talk.
Right. You're a good man, Patrick Johnston. Thank you for indulging our reindeer games. We'll catch up next week. Enjoy games 3 and 4 on the weekend.
Take care, guys.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.